familiar with the software, how many people might be very familiar with the software. So if you go ahead and answer the question that I've got here, by the way, I'm speaking to you from beautiful downtown St. Louis. I'm attending the ASTM meeting here for the concrete and aggregates section, and so it's very interesting. We've been talking about a lot of stuff, and in fact, I will probably be presenting something about this on Thursday afternoon when we have our session, our concrete technology session, talking about some of the changes that are being discussed at ASTM, things that might be of interest to you all. So, okay, let's see. We've got a pretty even spread here of people who are using the software. I'll go ahead and post this. So we've had 20% less than 6 months, 20% 6 months to a year, 20% 1 to 2 years, and 40% go all the way back to either the seeMIX DOS or the seeMIX 2 program. Okay, so we've got a pretty good diversity in terms of who's been using the software and so forth, and how long you've had it. So at this point, the last time we spoke, I talked more about analyzing an existing concrete mix and making adjustments for it. If you have anything in particular that you'd like to see as part of today's presentation, if you would go ahead and type it into the question box, and I'll be able to see from the question box what your concerns are. So just go ahead and type into the question box anything that you'd like for us to cover today. And let's see here. By the way, there is a thunderstorm front coming through St. Louis right now. If for some reason I drop off in the middle of a sentence, it's probably because in my hotel we've lost power, and I will try and get back on as soon as possible, but it may take me a couple of minutes. But I want you to be sure that I am broadcasting from a hotel room, so things are a little bit more dicey than they are on a usual basis. Okay, so far I've had questions about customizing reports, about setting up logos. So actually this sort of goes into what I was thinking about talking about. Let's see here. Here's another one. Streamline method for entry of new aggregate gradation tests. Okay, very good. Let's see here. I was thinking about talking more about the setup part today because it's something we haven't talked about in a while. And let's see if there are any other questions or comments that have come up. Okay. Nothing else has come up yet. So let me go ahead and start off with some of the requests that we've got here. I've got to reposition the toolbars so that I can get access to my program. Hopefully everybody can see the screen now. If you can't see the screen, please let me know. Just post a question, post a comment about the not being able to see the screen. You should be able to see the seeMIX 3 program on the screen right now. So if you can't, just post a question about that and we will respond to it. I just did the wrong thing, I'm afraid, and just got rid of all the questions. There they are. Okay, so yes, we've got those things, customizing reports as far as logos go. Actually, it's two things, and streamline method for entry of new aggregate gradation tests. Okay, we'll go ahead and talk about those things today then. First off, I just had another comment. I'm still posting the poll screen. Sorry, let me go back and hide that. There. Now you should be able to see the seeMIX 3 screen. Yes, I see an indicator that everybody should be seeing the seeMIX 3 screen at this point. Very good. So we'll continue. Now, the first question about putting logos on your reports. When you come in here for the initial setup, This is where you would set up things like your units of measure, your report titles. Now this is part of where you can customize your reports. At the top of each report, there's a 4-line title that's printed, and this is based on what we call replaceable commands. So what this is the percent less than. If you look down here, you would left justify anything that's before the percent less than. Anything between percent less than and percent greater than, like seeMIX 3 mix report, would be centered, and anything to the right of percent greater than would be right justified. So these report titles that you probably never need to change, you get seeMIX 3 mix report, then the mix ID, that's what this %M means. It's going to show the mix name and mod number. It's going to show the design strength and the date. And then the header that will appear at the top of every page, starting with page 2, is going to have the mix ID is going to be, and the design strength are going to be left justified, which is what this is right there. Then right justified is going to be the phrase concrete mixture submittal. Then the footer that appears at the bottom of every page, you're going to have today's date on the left corner. Then this means you're going to right justify the page number. So you can change this to whatever you want, but just remember that it applies to everything, and so you probably don't want to change it unless you want to put something different here for your mix title. And then, of course, over here are the email settings. These are the settings that I use, and but of course yours will be different depending on whatever the email settings are for your own email system. Down here for the data folder, this only applies if you have the network version of seeMIX 3. You can change the location of the data file. In the standalone version of seeMIX 3, it's always going to be stored in the program files /seeMIX3/data folder, and so that cannot be changed in the seeMIX 3 standalone version. Okay. Yes, I've got comments that you all can see the screen now. Good. Okay. Next, talking about the logos. When you come down here to owner information, I can probably get rid of this one. That was for a demo that I was doing. You can put in things like your company name, the address. We have 2 spaces for the address, the city, the state, zip code, country, contact. Now, a lot of this doesn't actually appear anywhere. We've got it in there for future reference for the ability to use it later on. Here's the email address, phone, fax, an alternate phone, a website, and then here's where you would select the logo. All you have to do is double-click in this box. It'll bring up a browse window, and then you can go to wherever you've got your graphics file stored, and you can see I've got a number of logos here. And let's see, the logo, actually it looks like I've got, yeah, this is where I got the logo from. You can have it as a JPEG file, a GIF file, a TIFF file. I've got a, actually I've got a different one that I had in a totally different location. Here we go. No, these are old logos, but I'll just go ahead and pull up this one anyway. Well, I guess this is the same logo. So this one says Shellstone for Contec. I can come down here and do Contec. Now, also, once you've selected your logo, you want to tell it to print the logo. Otherwise, it will print your name, company name, and address at the top of the report. But if you choose the logo, it will print the logo. Also, you've got to make sure that you've selected the correct company. If you want it to always print one name, you need to select that company, or you could have an alternate name that will appear there. Now, I've got another question, too. I've got to check on. Since I'm traveling, I've only got one screen, and so I have to pull up the question separately. The logos are not PDF. They're standard graphics files like GIF, that's GIF, JPEG, which is JPG, and you can see what these are. Let me go back here, and when you look here, you see we've got bitmap, a DIB file, CUR, ANI, I've never seen that one, an icon file. I can't imagine that you'd want an icon file. There's a wide variety of different files that you might have. But the standard ones are going to be JPEG, GIF, maybe TIFF, TIF, PNG, or BMP. Now, some of the formats we do have some troubles with as far as creating PDF files, but they usually print out okay. Another thing about the logo is it has to be a certain size. And I'm pulling up the help file right now. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. Hang on a second. Okay, now I'm pulling up the help file. And it should take us, well, where's my help file? Come on. It's F1 key, and it should bring up the help file. Well, I'll go ahead and do it manually. Help, and step-by-step setup, owner info, and you can see right here there's a section that talks about your logo. Now, one of the things you need to make sure of is that your logo has to be, or it's best if it's in a resolution of 120 by 600 pixels or some increment thereof. In fact, usually what I'll do is I'll create a logo that's 360 by 1800 pixels, because that way it's in the right proportions to appear on the printout. Otherwise, it can be stretched out or squished in, because we will force the logo to appear within the screen ratio or the aspect ratio that we need for it to appear at the top of the report. So usually, if you do it just at 100, create a logo at 120 by 600 pixels, that's not enough. You'll wind up getting a jagged logo appearing on the report, and so I usually go to either 240 by 1200 or 360 by 1800. And you can talk to your IT people or your graphics people about getting a logo file that you can use to put into seeMIX 3. Or if you want, you can create your own. What I've done for a couple of companies is just use a program like Microsoft Paint that comes with in the accessories. And let's see here. There's Microsoft Paint. And then what you do is you create a new image. Let's see here. I've done this before. Edit, view image. Okay. This is where you would resize and say you wanted to, let's see. I'm trying to remember now. It's been a while since I've done this. And page setup. I don't think that's going to change the image size. Yeah, that's not changing the image size. Let's see. I thought when you created a new file, that it let you choose your size, but I guess this is where you would have to. Let's see. Here it is. Yeah. So if you do width as 1800 and height as 360. And I'm using pixels right here, then that shows you how big the image can be. And you can do things like, if you say your logo is a square, what I've done sometimes is paste the square in to a square space here, and then I've come over to the side and use the text to put in stuff like Contact Shillstone Ink, and then make this bigger, make the text much, much bigger, like 70, I'll call it 36. Then, of course, you can change the font to whatever you want. Arial Black, make this much bigger. Oops, let's see here. I wanted to get that back. I think I've got to delete that and do contact Shillstone ink and then resize that. But anyway, there I go again. I missed the tag. But anyway, you get the idea. You could put a graphic image over here on the side, then put your company address here, so that you've got both the image and the printed address. And so I've done that with some people, just that it takes a little bit longer. So you can use something as simple as Microsoft Paint to generate these images, and then when you do File, Save As, and then you can change where you're going to store it. And in this particular case, I would put this in Computer, the C drive, go down here to Program Files, and seeMIX 3. Let's see here. Where's my, there it is, seeMIX 3. And then I would call this test logo, save it, and now if I wanted to get out of the help screen, now I can come back over here, and there's my test logo screen, which doesn't look like anything, but that's just to show you what I could have done if I had wanted to do it that way. So the best thing to do, though, is to get your graphics people to create the graphic image, give it to you, and then you can put it into your program yourself. So I hope that answered the question about creating a logo. Another question has popped up. When I load a bitmap, it is distorted on the report. That is probably because you don't have something that's in the format of 120 by 600. You might have a square logo, and so it's all stretched out. And that's why you need to go in. You can take your existing logo, put it into Paint, and then add the title information. Or you can crop it with Microsoft Paint or any other graphics program that you want to use. But you don't have to have a really fancy program to be, pardon me. Now this is what I hate, when you get the hiccups in the middle of a presentation, so I hope you'll pardon me here. Okay, the comment is that they fixed it, but it will not get any bigger. It will not get any taller. It will always be put on your screen or on your page at a height of 120 by 600 pixels. So you cannot change the actual height of the logo. Whatever you create will be squeezed into the space of 120 by 600 pixels and put onto the screen. So you cannot make the logo any bigger on the screen, even if you make the logo image itself bigger. We will compress it whichever way we need to, or stretch it whichever way we need to in order to make it fit. Now the next question is, can you change the format or just the title? This is when we were talking about the titles here. You cannot change the format. You can only change the titles, except for the fact that when you're doing statistical reports, of course you can change the content of the statistical reports using the report definer that we have in our program. So as far as changing the actual format or the layout of the report, we do not allow that at this point. It's obviously something that we're looking at for the future, but that makes the program that much more complicated, and most of our customers right now are saying they want to have the program as simple to use as possible. But we are looking at ways to try and be able to make the reports more customizable without making them more complex for the average user. Okay, so that pretty much covers the parts of setting up the report. Now we've got a question here about a streamlined method for entry of new aggregate gradation tests. So I'll go ahead and go on with that question next. Now to enter aggregate gradation tests, you have to do several things. First off, you have to set up the aggregate in the material aggregate screen. Most of you have probably seen this. You would have to be able to add your aggregate. And let's say we're going to create a test sand. This is going to be a fine aggregate. So I'm pressing the letter F for fine, or I can click on the down arrow right here and choose fine. The reason we have that is because some of the different procedures like ACI 211 for the concrete mix design have to know whether an aggregate is a coarse aggregate or a fine aggregate. And I've already got a test sand, I just realized, but it's lower. It's got a lower case. I'm going to call this test sand 2. There. Now I'll call this test sand 2. If you've got a supplier saved, you can set them up here, like DEF aggregates, or you can right-click on the supplier box, choose Open List, and then you can add another supplier. But I'm going to stick right now with DEF aggregates. The specification, this will automatically come up when it's time to enter a test result. So let me do a, let's say I'm going to do ASTM C33 concrete sand. Then you can put in your cost, $12 a ton, whatever it is. You really need to put a density in, because if you don't, you won't be able to use this aggregate in a concrete mix design. So let's call it 2.6. The fineness modulus will be calculated if you enter the right gradation information. The absorption, let's call it 1%. Now, there's stuff that we're working on right now as far as dry rotted unit weight, even of sand. So I'd recommend that you go ahead and put in a value for this. Go ahead and run a dry rotted unit weight of your sand. You can't really use it anywhere right now except if you're using the ACI high strength percent voids method for calculating water, which is for non-air entrained concrete below a 4-inch slump. But I'd recommend that you go ahead and run the test, put it in, because we may be able to do something with it later. Now also, you can attach a PDF file, just like we could attach a logo. You can create a PDF file and attach it to the to that material. And I'm going to just show you, for example, what this material is. Oh, I guess I can't pull it up from right here. I'm trying to right-click on it, and there we go. Sample sand, and this is what the report looks like. And it's got my, well, this was apparently a messed up report because it shows 1-inch stone. Obviously, I don't have 1-inch stone. This is a 7.24 FM, so I don't know how it got called 1-inch sand, but there it is. Anyway, it's a PDF file, whether it's a graph or a tabular report, and then you attach it to the material right there. Then you can come over here, and I'm going to delete the sieves that I don't need. It's pulled up my default sieves that are set up in my initial setup, and I don't need the 325 sieve either. Now this gradation right here is for the gradation that's going to be used for the concrete mix design. And it does not have anything to do necessarily with the tests that you've entered in the test results section. Let's see. No, hold it. I'm off here. Better get back. Make that 92, 65, 43, 25, 8, and 1. So the program, let's see here. You see it's calculated the fineness modulus for us. This is the fineness modulus for this material. Then I click OK, and now I can come in here and do data entry for my sand. These are the samples that I've already recorded. You can see I've got 4,000 test results entered. If I just wanted to find the tests for, I know I've got one in here called sample sand, go, it'll show me just the samples for my sample sand. Conversely, I could come in here to the filter and I could see, okay, I just want the materials where, let's see here, and aggregate name, and then I can choose the aggregate name from this list. And I can go down and find, well, I'll just go ahead and pull up Lakeside Building Sand. Here are all the samples for Lakeside Building Sand. Apply that, and there are my samples for the Lakeside Building Sand. It looks like I've got 20 tests for that particular one. Okay, I'm going to get down here and get rid of this. And I'm back to my 4,000 tests. Now let's say I want to add a test, and this is going to be my test. I just type the word test, and now I'm going to press the down arrow to go to test sand 2. I have to put in the aggregate name, the sample ID, and the date sampled. So I'm going to call this sample ID of 1. And by the way, you notice that the aggregate spec came up and the aggregate supplier came up. Now I'm going to choose my date. Let's say we did this on June 1st. Now the rest of the information here is optional. I can choose it if I want to, but I don't have to. If maybe I want to show who the laboratory is, then I've got user-defined fields here and remarks. The user-defined fields I can generate from the user-defined field box. You can see here are the ones for the aggregate tests. I've got both alphanumeric and, well, it looks like do I have one that's entered for numerical? Let's see here. These are all country tests. There's a numerical aggregate test. That's where I got barge number from. So you can set up to 10 user-defined numeric and alphanumeric tests. Alphanumeric obviously means that you can include letters in it, CR001, whereas this one for the barge number, I can only enter a number. I can't type in CR. I can only enter something like 6. Then you come over and do grading. You see it's automatically pulled up the appropriate sieves. You can enter the weights as weight retained, individual weight retained, or cumulative weight retained. The thing to remember is in the individual weight retained, the numbers do not always have to be going up. In cumulative weight retained, they will always be going up. So let's say that I've started off, I've got 50 grams, 125, 100, 175, 200, 125, 65, 30, and 30 grams. So the program has accumulated the total weight in grams that I've got there. I can now calculate the gradation. Since I've already got the spec tied in with the test, the program is showing me where I'm out of spec. Also, the program has calculated the fineness modulus. It's used the appropriate sieves over here for the fineness modulus. And if I want to transfer that fineness modulus where I can store it as a test, I click on the little blue arrow here. And when I go to tests, you see fineness modulus is now set to 2.73. And then you can also do things like say who the technician is. You can change the number of decimal places for the fineness modulus. You can set the date that the fineness modulus was calculated and so on. And at this point also I could do, let's say I've got 1.2% from the 200 wash, I've got an absorption of 0.9%, and I've got a bulk specific gravity of 2.62. And at this point, I can save the report or save the tests. When I come here, I can generate a test report, and I'll go ahead and print it. I can create it as a PDF file. You see there's my company logo, my project information. Here is the gradation and the specification, and then here are all my tests. And down at the bottom, I've even got a signature line and a place for any remarks. Now I can also generate a grading report, and here it comes with the well-known banana curve, so you can see graphically where you're out. Let's see, I'm just barely out on my number 4 and my number 8, and just barely a little bit on the high side on my number 100. so I can generate those reports of the individual test. This would be all the data that's available for that particular sample. Now, something right now that we're working on that you don't have in your version is once I've got this sample saved, I can come back over here to my aggregates, and I'm going to go down to my test sand right here. Now, look over here at my grading. We have a new button here. Again, it's not on your program, but it will be shortly. Update from test, and we'll go out and grab the most recent test for that aggregate and fill it in right there. And you may have noticed that all that changed. Also, you look over here, and I just noticed it has not, okay, this is why you don't have it yet, because we still haven't corrected everything. It has not changed the density or the fineness modulus or the absorption, and it should have. So I need to go back and document that we have that still to take care of. But it should update the gradation, and it should update the information here. Now I'm going to cancel out of this just briefly because I want to show you another thing that you can do. When you come down here to the mix design, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my my standard 1-inch mix, and I'm going to change the aggregate, my sand, to the test. Let's see here. It's showing me just a list of my sands. Oh, there it is. There's my test sand 2. I'm going to select that. Now, I look at proportions. By the way, this is designed based on the workability factor. So the amount of sand, which is 887, is going to be dependent upon the gradation of the sand. Now watch what happens over here for material. I had canceled out on my aggregate screen, I had canceled out the update. So now I'm back to my original gradations. If I come here, update my gradations, say OK. Now it won't change the numbers yet, but if I come here and choose Update Materials, it's going to choose the latest gradation information from the materials database. You see, because I've got a difference in my sand grading, it's automatically updated my mix to change my mix to keep my design workability factor, 36, but it's given me new proportions. So I can enter a new gradation in the gradation data entry screen, update the entry on my material aggregate screen, then come in and update the concrete mix design. And you can do all that, with the mix design open. Just enter the latest gradation, and in other words, basically what I'd have is I'd have this screen open, and then this screen open. I'd enter my new grading as my new sample and my new test. Then I'd save it. Then come over here, update that material. You have to make sure that you highlight the material that you're updating, because it's not going to update all materials. It's going to update whichever one you have highlighted. And so you click on Update Tests, and then click OK. Then you come over here and update materials, which I don't need to do because I haven't changed anything. So that can speed things up. Another thing that you can do to speed things up is when you're doing aggregate data entry, let me go back in here and do test and go. And then here's my test sand 2. And let's say that I've now done my second sample for that. All I have to do is copy this, and then it's already got maybe the information that I've got, the project, the bank, the barge number, the crusher number, whatever I've set up. All I need to do now is change the sample ID, change the date sampled, go in, change whatever my weights are right here, and it will store that properly with the for the next test. So you can minimize the amount of data entry that you're doing by just copying a sample. So anyway, I think that is supposed to, that will help streamline the data entry process and also updating the materials that you've got in your material aggregate database. Now, the next question related to that is, how about updating based on the last 5 gradings? And that's, again, something we've talked about doing, so that what that would mean is that here in the material aggregate, in addition to being able to say update from tests, there would be a way to say update from the average of the last 5 or the last 3 or based on certain filtering conditions. But that's going to be a little bit more complex, so we just wanted to initially go ahead and get the basic information in as far as the ability to update from the last test, the last individual test. So I hope that's helped respond to the question about streamlining data entry. In any case, you're going to have to enter certain basic information. You're going to have to enter the appropriate information for your gradation tests or your absorption or specific gravity, what have you. You don't have to enter the absorption and specific gravity for every test. You might just do it for a select few. And so, but usually the gradation, maybe the moisture content, maybe the dry rot or deodorant weight, these are things that you would probably be doing on a more regular basis. And you just have to enter the information that's required for the particular test that you're wanting to record. You don't have to do every test all the time. And by doing the copy test function that I just showed you, you can speed up the data entry somewhat, because then you would have all the same information from one test duplicated over to another, and then you just have to change the information that you were interested in changing. So that, so far that takes care of, well, I was about to say it takes care of all the questions that I've been asked so far. I just got a new one entered. Let me go ahead and read it, and we'll see. When I enter info about the amount retained in each mesh, the program calculates the accumulated percent passing, but the results don't merge to the sieves info on the aggregate product list. Just, I've got to make this screen a little bit bigger here. Just like it happens with the FM, is there a way to do it automatically? Okay, so what I think they're saying is, when you enter an aggregate data entry, let's see here, go, there's my sample, have on one of these screens, either general, grading, or tests, have a button down here that would update from this point back over to the material database screen. Here, I think this is what they're asking. So instead of having to come here and update the tests, you would just be able to come to, let me see, you'd just be able to make the entries here, press a button, and update the tests, and then you can bypass a step and then be able to come over to a concrete mix design and choose to update that mix design in a 2-step process rather than a 3-step process. And I think that's a very good idea. We don't have that right now in the program, but hang on, I'm writing myself a note. Update material database from test screen. Okay. Very good suggestion. Thank you very much, Arnaldo. I hope that answers your question. It's something that we're going to have to include, but I will pass that on to our programmers and see if we're able to do something like that. It shouldn't, I don't think it should be any problem, but let me find out for certain if that is going to be a problem. Okay, let's see, make sure that I read that properly. Okay, yep, I read that properly. Okay, so I hope that answered your question or comment, Arnaldo. And if it didn't, just go ahead and type in a further explanation. Okay, are there any other questions or things that you'd like to see presented today? We are coming up to about 2:45 Central Time. I usually try and keep these at about 45 minutes because people have other things that I know they have to be doing, and you know, after sitting at the computer for a while, it tends to be a little bit tiring. If there are any other questions, go ahead and answer your questions here, or ask your questions here. Again, on Thursday, we're going to be talking about concrete mix technology, and on Thursday, I want to develop a presentation to fill you in a little bit on some of the changes that we're discussing here at ASTM. I am active in the C9.40 committee, which is the committee for ASTM C94, the specification for ready-mix concrete. And in fact, I'm a task group chairman for the section that talks about batch ticketing, mixing and measuring, and the tests that are run by default on concrete samples. Another subcommittee I'm on is C9.20, which is on concrete aggregates, and I'm involved in the specification committee, which is the one that writes ASTM C33. So we're talking about some different things over there right now. I also attend, when I can, other task groups or subcommittees dealing with things like fresh concrete testing, self-consolidating concrete, and so on. At this meeting, we have gone through our subcommittee meetings for aggregates and C9.40. We've got our main committee meeting tomorrow, where we'll be talking about the changes that are being proposed and balloted on for different aspects of the ASTM standards. So that'll be it's usually only a 2-hour meeting, and we have to cram in all of our discussions and all of our ballots on all the issues that are being addressed in the ASTM concrete and aggregate C9 section. So it's going to be a very busy committee meeting tomorrow morning, but then after that I'll be able to pull together a summary of some of the changes that are being proposed or have been passed for ASTM C9 committee on concrete and concrete aggregate. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions popping up, so if you do have any questions, feel free to give me a call. I'm going to be at ASTM this week, so call me next week or send me an email at jays@contechonline.com, and I will be happy to answer your questions as best I can. I guess I'd like to thank everybody for attending the session this afternoon. If you have any ideas for other presentations that you'd like to have done next week or in following weeks, please let us know. We have gone through the entire series, the seeMIX, from start to finish, and so at this point I'm sort of trying to pick up topics that people are most interested in, but probably in the next couple of weeks we'll start going back through and starting at the beginning again. If you've just recently gotten your software, we'll start at the beginning again and go all the way through the process of everything from setup to aggregate tests. So I'd like to thank everybody again for attending, and I look forward to talking with you on Thursday. And again, Frank, I'd like to thank you, Frank Kozleski. I'd like to thank you for conducting the last 3 concrete technology sessions. I'm sure everybody gets tired of listening to me talk after a while, and so it's very good to have somebody like you step in, give a presentation from a different perspective. If any of the rest of you have presentations that you'd like to present to the group, please let us know, and we'll see if we think that it's going to be appropriate for the rest of the group. And if possible, we will let you present something to our group. So again, thank you all. Have a good afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you or to talking to you on Thursday. Have a good day.